Senator Larissa Waters, welcome to Full Story.
Good morning, Reged. Great to be here.
I just want to start with you and the job, because it's been more than 6 months since you became leader. And I just wonder, what has surprised you about taking on this role? What's been hard about it?
Well, I guess the hardest thing was it being all very unexpected. We had an election result where we managed to hold our national vote, but because of the electoral maths in those three-way contests in the seats that we had held with Adam and Stephen and Max, we lost those three wonderful men. And it was not anything that we expected. And, you know, we were coping with the grief of losing some friends and some fantastic representatives, and needed a new person at the helm. So I think the most challenging part of the last 6 months has been adjusting to that new situation. But I think probably the other challenging thing has been that Labor has got such a majority, and yet they don't seem to be using it to do very many good things. That's challenging for me as someone who wants to see reform that helps people and protects the planet. And whilst we had a good win on EPBC, which we may well go into, it's been pretty lackluster apart from that. So that's been challenging for me, knowing the need for reform and not seeing that ambition from government.
We are going to talk about that, but it's interesting that you say that you took on the leadership. It was a surprise, and you grieved. You grieved the loss of Adam Bandt and your other colleagues. You've mentioned the EPBC. It's been about a week, less than a week, since it was passed. Was this a legacy-defining moment for you, those new environment laws?
We certainly didn't get everything we wanted. Those laws are not fixed. They still need drastic improvement, but they're a damn sight better than what they used to be, and they're a huge amount better than what they would have been had the Liberals and Labor teamed up, as they were plotting to do, to make it even easier for big business. So I'm really proud that we've stopped that faster, cheaper pathway for approvals for coal and gas. It's just obscene that anyone would propose that a new coal and gas mine get approved at all in this day and age, let alone within 30 days. So I feel very proud of that. And also those protections for forests, which the law has had a big gaping hole in for 25 years. That hole's been plugged now. Forests will need federal tick-off, and that's no mean feat. It doesn't solve everything, but it's a huge step forward that I'm really proud of.
When did you know that deal was finally done? If you can just take me into the room when you spoke to the Prime Minister in those final hours.
Look, we pushed really hard. And we had lots and lots of FaceTime and kept on pushing until the very last minute, and managed to get some additional concessions, and managed to, unfortunately, not be able to land serious climate reform. The government's got a real blind spot on climate. They are so close to those fossil fuel companies, those same companies that make donations to their re-election campaigns, that offer jobs to resources ministers once they retire from Parliament. Every one of them, bar one, resources minister has left Parliament to go and work for industry. So clearly they're very close.
And yet what did he say to get you over the line, given these issues?
Well, look, I won't go into the specific details of personal conversations, but we had a back and forth negotiation building on the incredible work of our Environment Spoke Senator Sarah Hanson-Young, who is just such a hard worker, and credit to her for getting us to a position where we were able to seal the deal. We shook on it, and there we go. Job not done, still more work to do on climate, but 17-year-old me felt very happy that day.
That's incredible that it was such a long-term goal. You have said repeatedly that you want to get shit done. Forgive the swearing for our listeners.
I love it. More of it.
But these new environment laws are a big compromise for you. You wanted a climate trigger. There isn't one.
That's right. And that just goes to show that we need more Greens in Parliament to push for better climate outcomes. I am devastated that with such a majority of seats, like 1/3 of the vote but 2/3 of the seats, the Labor Party still doesn't want to take on the coal and gas industry. They've been doing some good things on renewables, and credit to them for that, but they're undermining the gains they're making for the climate with those renewable investments by simply approving almost every single coal and gas mine that crosses their desk. Is over 30 now that they've ticked off on since they formed government. And I'm not sure people really realise that that's what they're doing. I don't think that's what people voted for. They voted for climate action, and they're getting more of the same with a bit of extra clean energy sprinkled on top. And it's not good enough for the climate. So we will keep fighting on that, and we're going to need people to continue to keep up that pressure. I think the only reason why we were able to get a good outcome here was the pressure of the environment groups, of civil society, and the Greens bargaining hard to get the outcomes that we could.
Well, on that, I mean, it was a compromise for you. It was a pragmatic choice. Have you had blowback or any criticism from Green groups who said, look, there wasn't a climate trigger, so you just shouldn't have signed off on it?
Look, actually, Reged, people have been so grateful that we were able to get what we did. They knew that the deal with the Liberals was a real prospect, and they know that the government isn't really doing what's needed on climate. So I've had only positive feedback so far that people are grateful for what we could get, that protection for forests that we've never had before, new protections for land clearing right across the country, and in particular in the Great Barrier Reef catchment where I'm from in Queensland. Those things are very positive. Keeping the water trigger in federal hands, which means that the water impacts of coal and gas still needs to be considered and assessed federally, they're all really good things. And they were not on the table with a Liberal deal, and the Greens managed to secure them using our balance of power in the Senate. And that pressure from environment groups and civil society helped strengthen our hand, and we're going to need that to continue if we're going to get decent climate laws going forward.
I'm hearing a lot of criticism of what these environment laws didn't do, and you've put all of that on the record. And so this compromise, I'm interested in knowing if this is a new approach by the Greens, because how much of the last federal election was in your mind? The last federal election results and your desire to get this passed, you wanting to combat this idea that Labor fostered, that the Greens were obstructionist?
Look, in all honesty, that did not feature in my thinking whatsoever. I was thinking, what outcome can we get for nature? What outcome can we push for on climate? Is it going to be enough? Should we let this go through with these improvements or not? And when the final chips were on the table and those protection for forests were there, protection for land clearing, which activists and climate and forest campaigners have fought for decades, when all of that was on the table, plus stopping coal and gas being approved within 30 days, I just thought about, could I actually live with myself if I didn't stop coal and gas being approved within 30 days? And I couldn't. And our party room felt the same. None of us could live with that.
That was your red line.
That was my red line. And I'm so proud that we were able to deliver what we did. But as I said, job not done. It's not perfect. We still need climate considerations at the very least, but what we really need is for no more approvals for coal and gas. We've actually got enough energy. We need to keep it here domestically, use it, keep people's bills down, transition to renewables, keep those jobs flowing in those new industries, and stop giving all the handouts to the big polluters. They've had it so good for so long.
And I'm sure you know that Environment Minister Murray Watt has said this doesn't bring an end, this new legislation doesn't bring an end to native forest logging, and he could still approve new gas and coal.
Yeah, and if he wants to do that as the so-called Environment Minister, I reckon the country will be holding him to account for that. We should not have environment ministers ticking off on new fossil fuel projects.
I'm asking that because you're saying that this legislation ends that possibility, and I'm just curious about that discrepancy.
Ends the possibility of approvals? No, I'm saying that it should. It doesn't, and more's the pity. And we pushed for that, and this government, who is completely in bed with the fossil fuel industry, would not come at that.
Sorry, I meant the fast tracking.
Oh, yes. So they can't now get an approval within 30 days. But I mean, God, what a low bar. That's surely not enough. We know it's not enough. And it's good that they can't now get an even faster and cheaper approval process. But what we really need is that quick transition to renewables as quickly as we can. We know it's going to create more jobs. We know it's going to bring people's power bills down, which is very important. We know people want to be part of the solution with solar and batteries if they can afford to have a roof over their heads, another crisis that the government should be acting on and isn't. We just need the parliament to actually work for the people. That's not a crazy ask.
I'm curious about, just coming back to this pragmatism, the way you say you want to get shit done, and I hear you say that quite often with a lot of vigour, but it does suggest that you think the Greens weren't doing that before. Feels like a pointed separation from the last leadership.
No, it's really more an expression of why I spend a lot of my time and life doing this, is because I'm here for outcomes, and that's what the Greens are here for. It's to deliver, to improve people's everyday lives and to protect nature. And we can do that. And we deserve people deserve to have parliamentarians who are actually working in their interests and who aren't just for sale to the latest big political donor. I think the vision of a country where people's everyday needs are met, where we don't have any homelessness, where you can actually afford to fill up the trolley when you go to the supermarket or the grocery store or the markets, where you can go to the dentist and just use your Medicare card, and where you don't have to pay every time you need to see the doctor, and you're not waiting for hours and hours at emergency if you have to go to hospital, and you get a great quality education at your local school. That's not too big an ask. Surely that should be our right. And that's what I think parliaments are for delivering for people, for delivering for nature, and not for delivering for the 1% and the big corporations.
I want to come back to this idea of the Greens getting more done, and whether that might be with Labor, especially as it comes down to your personal relationship with the Prime Minister, because a lot of successful negotiation in politics comes down to those relationships. We saw Sarah Hanson-Young and Murray Watt have that kind of relationship where they could get these environment deals. In October 2024, Anthony Albanese said of the Greens they don't want to talk about the environment, they talk about some extreme agenda. After this deal, he said the Greens have been mature and constructive in their approach. How do you take that shift in tone?
I don't really mind or think too much about how other people define us. I mean, they're going to try and rewrite history in a way that benefits them. That's just the rules of the game. I don't take that too seriously. I just know that we will always work to try and get improvements for people and for the planet. And that's not a change. We've always been tough negotiators. And in the last parliament, when it came to the housing laws, we held out. And yes, we did have some tough negotiations, but we managed to get $3 billion for social and affordable housing that was not on the table at the start of those negotiations. So I back our negotiating style. I don't think we certainly don't apologise for those $3 billion extra to put roofs over people's heads. That is a good outcome.
Is this a different negotiating style? Because when Anthony Albanese used the term extreme agenda, Max Chandler-Mather was MP, Adam Bandt was leader. We know he had a difficult relationship, particularly with Max Chandler-Mather. Do you bring a different style, I guess is what I'm getting at?
Well, I mean, I'm a different person. So, yes, I guess I bring a different style. But I can't speak for the Prime Minister for why he has such a loathing for poor Max. Max is a fantastic champion for equity and for people's rights, and I'm proud of the work that he did. Look, maybe it's a fresh start. All I know is that we will keep working for good outcomes, Reged, and that's why people vote for us. They don't want us to just, be shouting at each other in Parliament, and often that's what you see in question time, literally these grown-ups just yelling at each other. And the poor school kids that come in and watch question time, it's a terrible example to be setting. And I think that's not the kind of person that I've ever been. I want to actually deliver for people. It's not about ego. It's not about performance for me. It's about what outcomes can we get.
It does certainly seem like a style that the Prime Minister prefers. You've got the environment laws. What's your next big ticket item that you want to get done, perhaps with Labor?
Oh, it's like asking me to choose between my children, Reged. There's so many. We've got a real inequality crisis. Like, people are finding it harder and harder every single day to pay the rent, to fill a grocery trolley, to get to the doctor, to get to the dentist. So the cost of living has not eased. That crisis is still there. So you've got a climate crisis, you've got a cost of living crisis, and we're still in a housing crisis. It gets worse.
Are you going to work on negative gearing?
I mean, this government should be taking up the challenge to actually fix the housing crisis. We know from all of the evidence that the moment those capital gains and negative gearing changes were passed by the then Howard government, that's when house prices absolutely skyrocketed and diverged from wages. That's when the housing crisis began. And every single government since then that's kept those tax perks for property investors in place is part of the problem. We need to fix that. And actually that is the right thing to do. So I am determined that we will see the housing crisis eased, and we will always work to try to remove those tax perks that just lock a whole generation out of ever owning a home.
Is that the specific thing you're going to Is that the specific thing you're going to aim for to work with Labor to deal with the tax perks for housing?
Well, that's something that I am personally committed to, and we will try to get outcomes on housing, on the cost of groceries, on the cost of living generally, and not lose our focus on nature. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, Reged. We're all very dedicated, committed people.
I want to cover a couple of other issues before I let you go. One Nation has doubled its primary vote, according to polling. And I wonder how you approach this, whether you're worried that the public, disaffected with how things are happening, are moving to the right rather than to the left or to the Greens.
I think there's two things happening there. I think the fact that people are having a shit time at the moment, that life's really hard, that they feel like they can't get ahead, that genuine economic struggle that most Australians are feeling, and the simplicity of the pointing the finger at migrants and people of colour. I think the simplicity of that is attractive for people who are feeling like life's really tough. It's not correct. Migrants are not the cause of the housing crisis or the cost of living crisis. It's a system that is designed to deliver for the big corporations and the billionaires, and that has created these circumstances. But I think people find it easy to buy what One Nation are selling because it's simplistic, even though it's wrong. So I think that's part of the reason. I think the other part of the reason why the One Nation vote is up is because the Liberals are in complete disarray, and all they can talk about is themselves. And they're not actually representing anyone other than their own personal interests in their party room, which is pathetic, and is not good for democracy, because we need a strong opposition. But the Greens are happy to be that strong opposition if the Liberals are off just navel gazing and tearing each other down. So I think those numbers won't hold. And I think when people, that's right. I think when people understand actually this is a system and it's deliberately distracting you by making you point the finger at your fellow neighbours who might have come from a different country while they keep raking in the profits. $67,000 per hour, if I can check my figure. There's some obscene figure that billionaires have made. Yeah, $67,000 an hour in the past year. Billionaires have increased their wealth. Now, it totally suits them to have ordinary Australians be blaming their neighbours for that, because it keeps the focus off reforming the system that's making the ultra-rich and the billionaires and the big corporations even more wealthy while everyone else is suffering.
So I'm just wondering, is the Greens taking anything from Zoran Mandami's style in New York as mayor, his kind of politics? Are you taking any lessons from that?
Well, look, his sort of politics has been the Green sort of politics for decades. And I was so thrilled, as I'm sure many other progressive people and people who want a fairer sort of world were, when in that heart of capitalism, they chose a representative that was not about delivering for big corporations, but that was about free childcare, rent caps, actually delivering for people. So I love seeing the success of that, because it's actually what the world needs. Notwithstanding that he's over there, he's not a Green. I think if he was in Australia, he would be a Green. We share very similar values. So I think it shows that when you name up how the system is working for big corporates and the ultra wealthy and not delivering for the community, people understand that and they want that fixed. And they love that someone who's elected to speak for them actually will speak for them.
Just finally, Sarah Hanson-Young said the Greens are now the true opposition party. Is that how you see it? Is that how you want voters to see it?
I love that description, and I love Sarah's bolshiness. What it's clear is that while the opposition are just busy tearing each other down, their first female leader, and they clearly can't stand it, says a lot about them and less about everybody else. I think the fact that the opposition at the moment are just obsessed with themselves is creating an opening for us to be the reliable, sensible, community-focused, nature-focused party in the parliament. We've always been that, and we will continue to be that. Like I keep saying, we're here to get things done. We're here to improve people's everyday lives and make sure that nature's protected. So, you don't see any navel-gazing here.
So you'll keep walking that line between being pragmatic, making deals with Labor for legislation, but then still pushing for amendments afterwards.
Yeah, that's right. We will always push to get a good outcome here, and we will not be passing laws that don't help people or the planet.
Senator Larissa Waters, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Reged. It's been fun.
Thank you.